All right, welcome everyone. My name is Brent Burchett. I'm Executive Director of the San Luis Obispo County Farm Bureau. For those that may not know, Farm Bureau is a grassroots nonprofit organization that has been advocating for agriculture in this county since 1922. Our positions on policy issues come from our 700 local member families and businesses. If you believe in agriculture, you should belong to Farm Bureau. This year marks our 100th anniversary, and everyone in the community is invited to our centennial celebration of agriculture on Saturday, September the 10th at Madonna Inn Expo Center in San Luis Obispo. Now, this is the last round of our 4 candidate forums for the June 7th primary. We began last week with candidates for the 2nd and 3rd District County Supervisor seats. And yesterday we had the 30th State Assembly District candidates. All of our forums are being recorded and will be available on our website at slofarmbureau.org. Our local Farm Bureau does not endorse candidates. Our goal here is to provide an informative and respectful event. Candidates will each be given 3 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. Approximately 6 to 8 questions will be asked, with each candidate receiving 2 minutes to respond. We will rotate which candidate answers each question first. If time permits, we will take a question or two from the audience. You can submit your question by using the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom browser. To help keep us on time, I will hold up a yellow sign indicating that you have 15 seconds remaining, and then a red sign to stop. Now, before we begin—
The sign was upside down, Brett.
Oh, thank you. I'll get it straight.
The sign was upside down.
At least it'll be red. You'll still know it's a stop sign. All right, before we begin, I hope we can all agree that being a candidate for public office is tough. Our democracy depends on having people willing to take time away from their family and careers to participate in an election. On behalf of SLO County Farm Bureau, we want to say thank you to all of our candidates for their willingness to run and for their service to our community. Everyone should have received their ballots this week in the mail. If you have questions about the election process, contact the SLO County Clerk Recorder's Office at 805-781-5080. All right. First, we're going to begin with our opening statements. Reminder, these are 3 minutes apiece. And I believe we're going to start with Jimmy. Jimmy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brent. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and everybody in attendance. I really appreciate the Farm Bureau putting on this particular candidate forum. I'm running for county supervisor because I love this community and I want to preserve and enhance our quality of life, including our agricultural history and the people who farm and ranch here in the community. I want to see that we nurture this thing that we love. It's the reason we all live here. I bring a technical resume and background and experience to basically tackle the difficult issues that we have, complicated issues like our water security. I studied at Cal Poly originally and got a degree in city regional planning. From there, I worked for about 10 years in the planning construction industry. So I have experience with permitting and complex regulations as a project manager. I also went to law school and obtained my Juris Doctor of Law, became a licensed attorney, and now I'm a small business owner. I've been serving on the Rio Grande City Council for the last 4 years, as well as a board member on 4 of our regional boards. What I bring to the table is a willingness to reach across the aisle to get stuff done. That's why I've been endorsed by 3 of my colleagues on the AG City Council, a Republican, an Independent, and a Democrat, because we work together to stay focused on the issues and keep the national partisan politics out of our local level. I'm a problem solver and a consensus builder. And that's what we need more than ever right now on our Board of Supervisors, so we can actually move the needle if we want to progress on the issues that really need to be addressed. It's really about integrity and service. And I grew up in a family where integrity and service were key values. My dad was an officer with SLO PD and my mom a local teacher. And they taught me that, being a public servant is about caring for the people here in our community and doing what's right. So if you elect me county supervisor, I will work really hard for our community to get the county on the right track. Please consider voting for me on June 7th or before then. Thank you so much.
All right, Lynn.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Lynn Compton, your current county supervisor. I believe we've accomplished a lot in the last 8 years, yet I believe there are still many things to be done. So I'm running again based on encouragement from almost the entire ag community in my district. If you don't know me, which is unlikely, I've had a lifetime of involvement in agriculture. I pursued science degree in agriculture for the top company in the world in the corn and soybean markets. That brought me to California, where I met most of the grape growers in this county some 30 years ago. People like Howie Steinbeck, Gary Eberly, George Donati. I held a PCA license. I eventually then moved to the top animal health company selling ivermectin-based parasiticides. I'm a member of California Women in Ag, the SLO Farm Bureau, SLO Cattlemen and Cattle Women's Association, the California Angus Association, and raise horses, and in the past have had a cow-calf operation. When Paul Teixeira passed away, the ag producers in this county approached me to run for office. They wanted agriculture to have a strong voice. I have a solid record of protecting property rights, protecting agriculture, protecting family farms, and for common sense solutions to many problems that affect agriculturalists, who, by the way, have a minority voice in this community. My opponent talks about how he wants clean air, he wants clean water and new water sources, and he wants to support farming, which is all great. He talks about it, but I've done it. There are many issues affecting farming. First, taxes. I've always advocated for less taxes, protecting Prop 13, no new sales taxes, lowering taxes and fees in the building department for permits, etc. As farmers, taxes affect the financial strength of ag operations. I completely support the Williamson Act every year, which prevents the conversion of ag to urban land uses. Second, government intervention. If you aren't a farmer, you don't realize how well-intended regulations affect agriculture. It's nice to say that the air pollution control, but the unintended consequences for agriculture are staggering. Crop creates dust. Farmers know that, bureaucrats and community organizers don't. When you make regulations in one area, they often have unintended consequences that are devastating in another area. Another such regulation is the new diesel emission rules that are coming down. The uncertainty that lies ahead, given no infrastructure, will be devastating. The well-intended wine barrel tax, how many of us remember that? Democrat and progressive statewide policies and regulations, such as those involving the Delta smelt, have curtailed water deliveries, putting growers out of business and killing agriculture in the Central Valley. California is the bread basket for the world, yet elected officials who know nothing about agriculture have made the place a nightmare for farmers to operate and to succeed. Lastly, private property rights. Those are fundamental to agriculture and water rights. Thankfully, you have a current 3-board majority that's supportive of private property rights, which is why it's so important for agriculture. We're still a right to farm county, which I support. My opponent has written extensively on the slippery slope of private property rights, advocating for taking them away of individuals for the common good. I'll post this article on my Facebook site. So yes, I'm worried, and that's why I'm running again for office.
All right, thank you, Lynn. We'll now go to our first question. We're going to start with Jimmy first on this one. This is a general topic question, and it's more about your philosophy and your background experiences. As you sit here today, tell us about the people, organization, or life experiences that have shaped your opinions about SLO County agriculture. Jimmy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So for me, growing up here, I didn't grow up in the ag community per se, but I certainly knew families that did. And I've been endorsed by a number of our local farmers. Brian Talley is one, Jerry Ortiz is another, just recently Delia Cantu, a local citrus grower. And that's really what has informed my understanding of the needs of the agricultural community. And what I hear in general are it's water, water, water. And I'm glad that we have an opportunity tonight to talk about where my policy positions kind of fall in relation to the incumbents, because I think that our water leadership under the last 8 years of the board majority's control has been grossly lacking. When I hear from farmers, I hear about energy concerns. When we talk about Central Coast Community Energy, for example, my opponent has labeled it a program that is essentially akin to a socialist government-run function that isn't good for our community, when in fact, what we know is it's been able to reduce electricity bills for our local community members, businesses, and farmers. And right now, anybody in the unincorporated area is paying 16% more on their electricity bill because of the opposition to joining community choice. So we've got energy concerns, the cost of electricity, permitting, regulations. These are all things that the incumbent might talk about as a goal, cutting the red tape per se. But when we look at the planning and building department at the county, for example, we see 30% of the staff gone. We're only at a 70% staff level. we see an organizational culture that has essentially been based in the toxicity that has been coming from that board majority and the incumbent, where instead of lifting up our staff to do a good job for the community and pride themselves in customer service, they're always looking over their shoulder. And at this stage, you know, it's really about getting the planning and building department back on track and making sure that our government is actually working for the people. Thank you.
Lynn?
Was it who do we listen to? Could you repeat it real quick?
Yes, ma'am. As you sit here today, tell us about the people, organizations, or life experiences that have shaped your opinions about SLO County agriculture.
Okay, well, I've spent an entire lifetime in agriculture, so that's where I get my opinions. I talk to agriculturalists on a daily basis. My whole life has been spent, and I'm getting old. It's not a short life in agriculture. All of the strawberry growers in South County support me. The largest and most successful generational farmers in this county support me. Hayashis, Tashiras, Taylors, Chavez's, Fugates, Plantel Nursery, Toomey's, George Donati, Dick Donati, Grimway Farms, Sheeble Hut, Darway Farms. Almost the entire Talley farm family supports me. Todd and Jill Talley, Christina and Ryan Talley, Byron, Grant, Elliot, Catherine Talley support me. Bob and Karen Talley Miller support me. An exact quote this morning from Catherine Talley was, quote, "How can anybody in agriculture support a liberal Democrat? Jimmy is a liberal Democrat and we're all conservatives. Democrat policies are killing agriculture." So I listen to the people that I surround myself with. They're agriculturalists. They're well-known generational families. They have my personal cell number. They call me. They tell me things that work, things that don't work. They tell me the issues that are facing themselves in this county, water-related labor costs. Labor costs are killing them. Invasive species, workers' comp issues, immigration reform, workforce housing, farm worker housing. Those are the things that shape my view and outlook and shape my decisions and things that I bring to the board to support agriculture.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. Oh, I'm sorry, we already did that one. Next question. I'll get it straight eventually here. All right, our second question. Lynn, you'll be up first for this one. What do you believe are the most important actions the Board of Supervisors can take to support farmers and ranchers?
There's actually a lot that comes before the Board of Supervisors that has to do with farming. I mean, the county places a very high priority on this, staying in agriculture and farming community. We rarely switch land out of agriculture and put it into any other use. So some of the important things at the county and actions for the board to support farmers are the Williamson Act. That discussion comes up every year, preserves family farms. We vote, and I have voted in favor of it. We have a right to farm county and a right to farm ordinance so that nuisance lawsuits are minimized. Water decisions that promote sustainability, water supply, securing water sources, runoff, et cetera. We've supported, and I've supported ag tourism, hip camp, weddings on agricultural properties to make extra profit. I've supported and brought back farm worker ordinance housing and was not supported by the minority on the board at the time, which was Bruce Gibson and Adam Hill, but we were successful with the board majority in bringing that back. We have a no water export ordinance. We had a recent vote, which is very significant to South County, on state water and some tools to be able to trade water for capacity to help those in South County out. We have partnerships with some of the supplemental basins. We did a hemp carve out for listening to the growers up there in Edna Valley because it affected agriculture. CEQA reform is huge. We've advocated for CEQA reform as a way to stop some of these lawsuits. One of the most important things was the US EPA Price Canyon aquifer exemption that we got. I worked very hard on that with Mike Stoker when he was the head of the US EPA. That water could potentially be used in the future. And lastly, but importantly, we promote roads and we prioritize, because of a board majority, prioritize roads because farmers use the roads for their implements, their equipment, and to transport their goods. So those are some concrete things I have done to support agriculture while I've been on the board in the last 8 years. And these come up yearly. We vote on them yearly. And a lot of times it's a 3-2 vote. So I'm telling you where I stand, and you can figure out where the other boards of supervisors stand.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Well, I think water is the #1 concern here in SLO County, not only for our residents, but our farmers alike. And I've been working hard as an Rio Grande City Council member to make sure that our Central Coast Blue Recycled Water Project, which treats our wastewater that's currently being sent to the ocean, injects it back into the ground to protect the groundwater basin from saltwater intrusion, and then pumps out an extra 1,000 acre-feet of water per year, is on track. And in addition to that, I support conservation programs. We have been leading on our Cash for Grass program in Rio Grande, really encouraging residents to utilize drought tolerant landscaping instead of grass. And that's some leadership that we really need in the Nipomo area that we haven't seen over the last 8 years, especially during the recent drought. I support the Right to Farm Ordinance as well as the Williamson Act and good regional planning efforts on water. And that's what I will bring to the table as a county supervisor. We've seen that we have a persistent overpumping problem throughout the county. That's in the Paso Basin, the SLO and Edna basins. Even in Nipomo, on the Nipomo Mesa, we see a persistent pumping depression according to annual reports. And so the incumbent can speak to some of the good things she's done, some of these water tools that I would have supported as well. But the fact is we're overpumping our basin and we have a scarce amount of water and we need to protect the groundwater that we have. So what I will do is continue to lead regional efforts to develop new projects like recycled water projects. There's a lot of opportunity to do that in the Edna Basin to support the implementation of the groundwater sustainability plan in the Paso Basin, as well as the SLO and Edna Basins, and then bring stakeholders together to truly address some of the problems that we're dealing with in South County. Ultimately, I believe that we need a regional desalination project. And I've been proud to partner with Cal Poly to study the Phillips 66 oil refinery as a future potential location for that site. And that's the kind of leadership I'll bring to the board.
All right, thank you. We'll continue along what you all have already been bringing up. Our next 3 questions are all on water. Jimmy, I believe you'll be—
Wait, did you want me to answer that one?
Did I not give you a chance to answer that one? I thought I did. I'm sorry.
But could you repeat it just before we do it?
Yes.
If you want me to skip it, I can skip it.
I haven't asked the question. I'm sorry. Here comes the question. So Jimmy, you'll be up first. The question is this: water remains one of our agriculture community's biggest challenges. What do you believe?
Hey, Brent, don't I get to answer that last question that Jimmy just answered?
I'm sorry, Lynn. I thought it was, what do you believe are the most important actions the Board of Supervisors can take to support farmers and ranchers? But am I crazy? Did I already ask the water question?
Okay, I thought we went on to what are some of the things that we've done. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You may be right, Lynn. I apologize. Water remains one of our agriculture community's biggest challenges. What do you believe are the most viable options for bringing in new sources of water to the 4th District and to the rest of SLO County? Jimmy, you'll be up first.
Well, that's a nice segue into what I was just talking about. I certainly support recycled water projects like the Central Coast Blue Project, and studying desalination. We've got the existing desalination facility at Diablo Canyon. I think that we need to ensure that our local policymakers are working to continue using that facility for a municipal supply in the future. And like I was mentioning, let's look at opportunities, that would otherwise become stranded assets. So case in point would be the Phillips 66 oil refinery. We had a number of Cal Poly studies analyze the potential repurposing alternatives for that site. One of them was for desal, given the fact that it has an existing outfall that's permitted by the Coastal Commission. I think that when you look at water in general, you've got to look at it from a regional standpoint, and that's ensuring that we have a diversified water portfolio. So it's protecting our groundwater. It's ensuring that we do have the proper storage capacity and bringing in new water supplies, of course, in addition to conservation efforts. The incumbent has been sending out a number of mailers that talk about her leadership on a regional Tri-Counties desalination project when not a single thing has come before the Board of Supervisors on that. And I wonder what she really has been doing on that over the last 8 years. She also talks about and touts increasing storage capacity at Lopez Lake, which has been studied to be infeasible and is something that's not currently on the table. That's problematic in terms of misrepresenting the facts. And then she also touts progress on acquiring Santa Margarita Lake or the Salinas Dam, raising the spillway, for example, to increase storage capacity. And we know that would cost tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So what you hear from her is never the truth or the facts related to how much it's going to cost and who's going to bear that cost. So when you look at her regional project record as it relates to water, it's a big whopping 0. And if the agriculture community cares about regional water leadership, they would be wise to consider that record.
Okay, that's interesting because we're bringing in water right now into this county through the Water Tools Amendment, and I don't think you've created one new drop of water in this county since you've been in office. But let me tell you what the county's doing and what I've done sitting on the Board of Supervisors or the various entities that I participate in. We had a behemoth plan come down from the state with GSPs and GSAs to put in place with all of the critical, well, all of the basins, not just the critical basins. The county stepped right up, got involved, and we've got GSAs and GSPs in place everywhere in the county. We also appointed Blaine Reedley, who's our sustainable groundwater manager, and he has been very successful in getting grants to assist the farmers. I think he's received about $7 million in grants this year to go toward those critical basins. As I mentioned before, we did the Water Tools Amendment to move water between South County, Santa Barbara County, and our county. We also allowed the de minimis users in the county not to be saddled with all these regulations and the costs associated with all these water plans. Since when Adam Hill was alive, Adam Hill and I were on a task force looking at how do we move desal water from Diablo Canyon down into South County and put it into the current piping system that's already under the ground. We were progressing along with that in discussions with PG&E, and then they decided not to pursue relicensing. I do believe that's back on the table now. Just because a thing doesn't come before our agenda doesn't mean that the county is not working on it. We are in negotiations with Santa Barbara City and the city of Montecito to participate in their desal facility. And you never know what anything is going to cost or be successful until you do a study and do it. And it may be an option to use later at a particular point, or it may not. It may be off the table, but you got to do the studies first. We have looked at and are pursuing Santa Margarita Lake and raising the floodgates to that doubles the capacity. It's expensive. Yes, no doubt. Desal is expensive and will be more expensive if we don't have a nuclear power plant there. So we're looking at things like that for South County too. So water exchanges, we're looking at water exchanges, many other things I'll talk about.
All right, thank you. Jimmy? Jimmy, you already answered my question order. I'm so sorry.
So we should go to the next question. And
back to the next question. It's all in water. I keep thinking we're talking about water. All right, I'll get it ready before we're done tonight. All right, the Board of Supervisors has taken several important votes on water in recent years. Which decisions do you believe the board has gotten right, and are there any decisions you disagree with? Lynn, you'll be up first for this one, then Jimmy.
Yeah, I think, you know, AB 2453 came up right when I first got on the board, and the board at that time before I got on was going in a different direction. And I got on the board, and there was a vote of the people up there, and I want to say it was 77% of the people were opposed to that. And so we've gone in a different direction. And not only my opponent right now, but my opponents on the Board of Supervisors, they seem to think that government knows best. And I believe the people that live in that region should make those decisions. And they know best on how to use their land and how to conserve. And farmers do conserve. They are very economical. They're not going to waste water and, you know, overwater a crop when they don't need to because it costs them money. So putting those plans in place with the different GSPs and the organizations and getting that moving was something that we did right. We talked about hiring Blaine, some of the water decisions in terms of moving water between other areas, we talked about doing a no deep well drilling, but that's pretty much been settled right now. No export ordinance. I think those are some of the things that we've done right. What are some of the things we've done wrong? I think in some instances, there probably hasn't been enough outreach to the community. And I think you have people that aren't farmers, that don't know what it's like to farm, that are making decisions in offices, and they don't realize the catastrophic effects those have on the farmers. So the more outreach, the better. And I think there's sometimes where we've lacked in that outreach to the community. So I would say that's one of the things that we could improve on.
Jimmy, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to note for the record here that my opponent just referred to her colleagues on the Board of Supervisors as my opponents on the Board of Supervisors. And I want everyone here to just reflect on what that means. Instead of that collegiality that we need to actually work together to get stuff done, clearly we have this notion of just opposition based on ideology. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, is to bring good governance back to the county. Governance where we're looking at facts, we're looking at science, information, and we're willing to try to cross the aisle, build consensus, and focus on the issues that matter. When I look at some of the county's decision-making, including the board majority and the incumbent over the years as it relates to water, I take specific issue with the effort to change the de minimis threshold from 5 acre-feet to 25 acre-feet, because the intent of what the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is working toward is to literally sustainably manage the water that we have in the ground. And so when you change that threshold up to 25 acre-feet, you're creating a new level of use that is not consistent with the goal of trying to actually manage the water in a sustainable way. In addition, I spoke to just the lack of leadership in general from a regional standpoint, and the fact that in South County, you didn't hear the incumbent respond to what I mentioned earlier about the Nipomo Mesa having this persistent pumping depression. Although there are a number of purveyors that are involved in the complicated adjudication and litigation associated with managing the basin, the Santa Maria Water Basin, it does take a willingness to bring people together to solve problems and do what's best. And we've been lacking that, as clearly demonstrated by her identifying her colleagues as opponents. So I really hope to restore that level of team building, of consensus building, of true engagement. She talked about engaging the community. So often, especially with the North County water planning, we've seen a number of stakeholders that have not had a seat at the table when they should. And it's about getting everybody at the table to work together to solve this problem, to protect our water.
All right. This will be our last question on water, not our last question of the evening, but Jimmy, you'll be up first for this one. The question is this. On March 28th, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that included a provision for counties and local groundwater agencies to put new scrutiny on the permitting for new irrigation wells. SLO County has decided in recent weeks it will not issue new irrigation well permits in parts of high priority groundwater basins it controls. Of course, it's the Paso Robles, Cuyama, and SLO Valley Basin. Do you agree or disagree with the approach SLO County has taken?
Well, I think that the executive order was really intended to ensure that we're protecting the water in the basin. When you look at it and read the legislation, it says its intent was to protect health, safety, and the environment during the drought emergency. And that's why it's implementing these new regulations regarding well permits, specifically in areas of the basin that are in critical overdraft, like the Paso, Cuyama, or Edna Valley basins. It's definitely an additional burden to the farming and ranching community. It will probably require, it looks like, a new report by a local hydrologist. And I know that the Farm Bureau has been advocating at least to try to provide good information to the farming community about this new rule. I definitely hear it when folks talk about death by 1,000 cuts. I think there are plenty of areas where regulation belongs, and there are other areas where it goes too far. In this particular case, I see the intent. Hopefully there's a way for the county to interpret the ordinance moving forward that won't overly burden any of the farmers in our community.
All right, Lynn.
Okay, I just want to respond quickly to the discussion that we just had. When there are issues that affect farming, you better believe I will fight for what I believe is right. I want this business to survive in this county. And so if it is get along and everybody vote the same like you seem to do all the time with your Grande City Council, even if you disagree with things, well, I had to vote with them because I saw where the vote was going. I find that reprehensible. I will fight for what is right for this business. And by the way, the South County does have an adjudicated basin, which means politics are taken out of it. The priority of rights are already determined. There are different implementations and strategies that come into play when water levels and well levels get to a certain point. It takes the politics out of it, which is actually kind of nice down there. So we can't change those. And if you want to change the priority of rights and tell those growers that they don't get the water, it goes to somebody else, you're going to have a big fight on your hands down here. Regarding the governor's executive order, yeah, I have issues with it. It's like the governor taking a big wand and just by executive fiat telling everybody he's going to do this. There was no legislative discussion. It wasn't COVID related. Why does he get to just put an executive order in place with no vetting and without legislation? Are there some good things about it? Yeah, we have an overdrafted basin in a lot of instances, and there are some good things about it, but it is an assault on some private property rights, and it's not vetted. So I do have a problem with that. You have to show interference. It's not saying you can't drill a well, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. I think it's just another thing that was done and slid through without vetting. And again, it's going to really hurt agriculture. I disagree with my opponent on the de minimis use. When you're talking a de minimis use, you're talking somebody that's not intensively farming agriculture. It's a rancher. It's a person that has a home that has some horses and has a riding facility. These are not the people that are overdrafting the basin. That's not them. So why do we target them, the small family farms, and put them out of business? That just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, thank you. For our next question, Lynn, you'll be up first. And this question, I'm trying to get our spotlights going here. All right, Lynn, you'll be up first. The question is this: the County Planning and Building Department is often a source of frustration for many of our farmers, ranchers, and rural property owners. It's difficult to get clear guidance on permit requirements, and the permit process itself is slow and onerously expensive. What can be done to improve this problem?
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that statement. We have streamlined a lot of processes at the county, and we've completely reorganized that department under Trevor Keith based on how he felt the department needed to be reorganized to be more productive. One of the suggestions that I brought forward, which is being implemented, is when someone comes forward with a permit, kind of like you do at a hospital. If you have a patient at the hospital and you're the family coming to visit them, you have one person that shepherds you through the whole process. And we're now doing that. So your project doesn't sit on somebody's desk and you know where it's at and you can communicate with one person. I've also voted consistently year after year not to raise fees on our fee schedule. Even little fees hurt. And so every year we vote on the fee schedule, I vote no. We've hired more inspectors. We're hiring 9 new plan checkers. We do outsource some of the things that we can't fulfill in-house to facilitate the process. We've lowered fees on affordable housing projects, and made 0 lot lines more practical to do without involving a whole new process. But it's a budgetary balance. You know, our budget is constrained. It's a little over $700 million a year. So if you want to add more to this department, you have to take away from a different department. And I will tell you, the cannabis regulations and rules have drastically affected our workload in that department. I will use the word opposition is allow more cannabis, and you'll be able to very cumbersome to roll out and had a negative effect. We're also feeling the effects of COVID, and it's hard to hire people, and it's hard to maintain people when they want to work at home. They don't want to come into the office. So I think that situation will straighten out in a little bit now that people aren't being paid by the government to stay home and work. I think that will straighten out. But we've done a lot of good things to improve the process in our building and planning department. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm the first critic to say that.
All right, Jimmy.
Thank you. Yeah, the first thing I would do to essentially get the process working more efficiently in the planning and building department is a comprehensive survey to the building industry to identify the holes in the system. We've seen other local jurisdictions implement a survey like that. And when you actually ask the people that are going through the process, the applicants, what the holes are, you learn exactly you know, where your main gaps are in the system, and then you can move forward in addressing those. So I would really love to do that as a county supervisor. The second is more project management training. So I worked as a project manager in the construction industry for over a decade. And one of the projects I managed was an airport improvement program up in Del Norte County on the Oregon border. What we were able to do using project management tools like program master schedules was develop a way to manage a project that had so much complexity due to the regulatory agencies that were involved. In order to upgrade the runways, we had to fill wetlands, which involved the Army Corps of Engineers jurisdiction. We had U.S. Fish and Wildlife involved, the EPA, the FAA, you name it. And when I initially was assigned that project as project manager, I built a schedule that showed if we wanted to meet all of those permit conditions, the coastal commissions, coastal development permit conditions, there was no way in heck we were ever going to actually build the project, the new airport terminal and the surrounding access roads, et cetera. And so I firmly believe in the process of working together around these key project management tools. And I would love to ensure that there's more training that's being done in that area at the county. The fact that we're operating at 70% capacity in the planning and building department means that we're not properly incentivizing new staff. And I mentioned the culture and toxicity that I've observed. Many of the county employees have actually come to work for the city of Arroyo Grande because we treat our employees fairly, with respect, and we work together to solve problems. So those are the kind of philosophies and I guess approaches that I will bring to the county to really make our government work for you.
Okay, thank you. This next question, Jimmy, you'll be up first. The question is this: the cost and availability of housing continues to plague our entire community. This limits the ability for our children to live here and carry on the family farm, and it also makes it difficult for farmers to house their workers. What is your plan to make housing more affordable?
Thank you. We need to build housing for all income levels. That's important as much for our economy as it is for quality of life for folks and individuals here on the Central Coast. So that means the county needs to take a proactive role in zoning land for multifamily housing, more mobile home subdivisions, upzoning in key areas. That's one of the projects I've been working on in Arroyo Grande, is to upzone the East Grand Avenue area to make it more, to increase density in the right place in town. Of course, when you build housing, you have to balance that with the needs of water. Do we have enough water to support that growth? We don't want to destroy our open spaces, our working landscapes, our agriculture, our scenic coastline. So it really does take balance. And that's why I don't take any money from developers. It's just a matter of transparency and accountability. I don't want donations coming my way and then my votes to be influenced in the future. And we see a track record of that with the incumbent. We saw recently too her vote to support repealing the inclusionary housing ordinance, which is an ordinance that requires developers to incorporate a portion of affordable housing units or pay into a fund that then goes to nonprofit builders like the People's Self-Help Housing, who then build that affordable housing. And it's very clear why she repealed that. It's a follow the money kind of situation. Look at the $150,000 plus she's taken from developers, and you'll see that she's not working for us. She's not trying to solve the affordable housing, workforce housing problem. She's working for them. Beyond that, I've led the charge on a regional planning process around accessory dwelling units. I co-founded the SLO County ADU task force to bring members of the private sector and public sector together to talk about how we could streamline those policies. And we've made a lot of progress. In addition to that, I voted on projects like approving a 64 unit HASLO project in AG.
All right, thank you, Lynn.
Okay, so the county doesn't build houses. We don't do that. That's not part of our job. We have to incentivize builders to want to come here. And I think that the bashing of builders in that industry is ridiculous. Stop bashing them. They're the ones that are producing the homes that you want. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want to bash developers and make it hard for them to build, but then say, oh, we want you to build. There's a lot of things that affect that. CEQA reforms, which I've been advocating for years, and we're working with the development industry. Time is money. They can't get projects through if they're consistently sued by environmental groups. I'm adamantly opposed to the in lieu housing. It's a tax, the in lieu housing tax. in what world does it make sense when you have a shortage of something to add a tax to the top of it? That defies logic. Farm worker housing. Because of me, we have a farm worker housing ordinance that's streamlined against the opposition of Bruce Gibson and Adam Hill. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to prioritize it. We need that. We're an agricultural community. We have taken actions that make ministerial permits sail through the system on a ministerial basis where they haven't before. So that helps get the process rolling. We have zoning of lands. When you think about our county being so overdeveloped, only 4% of the land mass in this county is developed. I can't even think of a project besides just completing the woodlands, which was part of the master plan. There's no big development going on in this county at all. You know, when you have developers telling you that the standards coming down for the state for runoff water, the water has to be more pristine than drinking water standards. How do you do that? How do you comply, and how do you produce a home that's affordable to produce? So it's looking at the comprehensive industry. We have a task force that's worked with builders, developers, the nonprofits that look at things that are important, but we have a shortage of homes, and that's a way to get around it. Since I've been on the board, we've granted over $14 million to address this issue to projects to build homes.
All right, thank you. Our next question is on energy, and Lynn, you'll be up first. Question is this: earlier this month, Governor Newsom said the Diablo Canyon power plant should stay open. What should our Board of Supervisors do to help keep Diablo open now that the governor has weighed in?
That's a great question. I agree with that. We should keep it open. And it's not what should your board do, it's what is your board doing? Let me tell you, about 2 months ago, we wrote a letter to the governor saying, no, let's keep it open. We had heard rumors and rumblings the president had made that he thought it would be a good idea. I don't think you'll find anybody in this community except Mothers for Peace that wants it shut down. It's the #1 employer. It's the #1 tax contributor. We've worked with Assemblyman Cunningham's office. It's 1,500 jobs, and it's green energy. There's no carbon footprint to it. We've also made it part of our legislative platform. And for those of you that don't understand that, making something as a priority in your legislative platform means your lobbyists that you hire are advocating on your behalf in Sacramento for that. So we've made it part of our legislative platform. And I'm going to tell you, with both of those instances, the legislative platform and the sending the letter to the governor, it's been a 3-2 vote on the Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Gibson has opposed it, and Supervisor Ortiz-Legg has either voted or recused herself because of past employment, and I understand that. But it's critical for energy, for brownouts. It's critical for the economic impact it has on our community. I've also been on the task force for Parcel P and the reuse of Parcel P for years. And what can we do in the event that Diablo Canyon does not pursue relicensing and they do go away? What are we going to do? We're looking at bringing in some wind energy contracts to replace that energy and the jobs that will be gone with Diablo Canyon. We're looking at putting in ports at possibly the Phillips 66 plant, possibly Morro Bay, possibly the old Diablo Canyon site. So there's a lot of things we're doing to prepare if it does eventually, which I believe it will at some point, be decommissioned. But if we can keep it open a little longer, like we're advocating for with the governor's office, I certainly think we should continue to try to do that. Plus, if we keep it open, then we could use the desale and pursue the desale option.
All right, thank you. Jimmy?
Yeah, first I'd like to just go back to the prior question. My opponent stated something about me bashing developers, and I haven't done that. The only thing I've done is called attention to the fact that she takes literally $150,000 from developers, votes on their projects, and doesn't think that that's an issue. And I think that that's really an integrity issue. She also mentioned there isn't a lot of development going on, but she failed to note that the largest development project in South County, or proposed development project that would add 1,300 homes, the Dana Reserve project, is essentially the subject of a political action committee that's been sending negative advertisements out to spread lies. And that's obviously intended to support her because the developer knows that with her vote is bought. Now, shifting gears to Diablo Canyon, Governor Newsom has said that he plans to seek some of the $6 billion in federal bailout funding for nuclear power plants threatened with closure. PG&E is also kind of changing its tune around this. I want to see us, from a long-term standpoint, usher in a new era of renewable energy. That's offshore wind, more solar, hydrogen. Ultimately, I think that we want to see Diablo repurposed, and that's something we can do with a number of goals in mind, like preserving the desalination facility that's there, conserving the surrounding lands. But in terms of the state's overall power needs, it is looking more and more like we need additional time to transition. And if we don't have enough clean power online to replace Diablo Canyon, and PG&E, the state, and other stakeholders, including regulatory agencies, are all willing to consider changing course, then it is worth revisiting the conversation and talking about postponing the plant's retirement. That's what the governor is actually doing right now. So I completely support that effort. And then beyond that, when we look at the regional jobs equation, how do we produce more high-paying jobs for the region? How do we protect our economy? I've been proud to serve on the REACH Advisory Commission, which is a top-down, private sector-led effort around accelerating job growth in target industries, agricultural, renewable energy, aerospace, defense, and precision manufacturing. I also co-founded the Central Coast Economic Recovery Initiative during the pandemic, which was a bottom-up movement focused on clean energy, housing, and infrastructure policy, and I support both of those.
All right, our next question is on homelessness. Jimmy, you'll be up first for this question. The question is this: SLO County recently adopted a new 5-year plan to reduce homelessness. What do you like and dislike about the plan, and are there other steps the Board of Supervisors should be taking?
So first and foremost, I see this as an opportunity for all of us in the community to unite, really because of our state law. Our state law says that you cannot go as an agency, whether you're a city, county, Caltrans, and clear encampments unless you have a reasonable, safe, and accessible location for these folks to go. So if you're more conservative minded and you want to clean up our parks for our families, or you're more liberal minded and you want to approach this issue with compassion and empathy, the time is now to work together as a community to build the housing necessary to shelter these individuals and basically reclaim our public spaces. So I do support the county's plan. Unfortunately, it took a citizens group to really get the ball rolling. And I would commend my opponent for recently approving the county's plan, but also highlight the distressing reality that it took her 8 years in office to finally make this a priority. The things I like about the plan is that it has short-term goals and long-term goals. In terms of short-term, it's building the temporary shelter necessary through tiny homes, through safe parking, through pallet homes. It's about then providing more services, mental health services, drug addiction services, and then finally building more permanent supportive housing, which is a fiscally responsible approach when you think about the total cost burden to taxpayers of dealing with homeless individuals in our ERs, in our jails, demanding the time of our law enforcement. So it's time to take steps to really take the preventative approach and build that capacity. In addition, I like the fact that the plan staffs resources at the county and the social services department, that it includes a homeless operations center, that it has a citizens advisory group, which is really important because so many of those folks should have a seat at the table. They're very valuable in the conversation. And then I like the regional commitments that is all about trying to bring the cities together to take a regional approach to the problem. And I've been leading in that area, having brought the faith-based community together in South County to talk about safe parking programs and how we can work together.
All right.
Okay, just one comment before I move on to homelessness. I find it interesting that my opponent calls private businessmen who want to support a candidate buying votes, but he doesn't feel like taking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from unions, mostly out of this county, who want project labor agreements, which he advocates for and actually has shut down projects on as not buying votes. All right, we've done a lot with homelessness. We didn't just start it, contrary to the last comment. When a citizens group came forward, we out of our building and planning department almost 2 years ago to work on homelessness. Then we got hit by COVID, which pretty much took all of our resources, as we were the lead agency for the county, off of everything else and put them on homelessness. But Carolyn was already making way with all the different communities and stakeholders in that arena. So it had nothing to do with the new plan that came forward. We've done a ton for homelessness. We built a detox center, which is the first ever in this county, so we don't have to send our individuals away for a detox. We've purchased a hotel in North County and converted that. I want to say it has 160 rooms. We have the Prado Day Center, which has come to fruition since I've been on the board. We've increased our shelter capacity by 78%. We have behavioral case managers that are now communicating. We had I think it was 50 now program that's now 80 now, where we target the top homeless individuals and give them wraparound services. We have pallet homes going in on a property the county owns. We have the Blue Bag program. We have safe parking that came to fruition a couple months ago. We have No Place Like Home grants. And the thing that I didn't like about the citizens group that I'm happy we aren't implementing is they wanted a joint powers agreement between all the cities in the county. Otherwise, they bought onto our plan. And the Joint Powers Authority would have taken away any property rights we had at the county, and they could have made decisions that took away our property rights. But we have a new homeless department. We have a new budget for that. We have a new person that's overseeing that. And I think it's going to be really good for the county. But look, this is not a problem that I'm going to promise you the county is going to solve. I mean, we have Prop 47, Prop 57, and a lot of state programs that seriously affect us down here. We have a rampant drug problem that's out of control that people don't want to face. And until you take care of those, putting a roof over somebody's head doesn't change their life.
All right, thank you. We got time for probably 2 more questions. Lynn, you'll be up first for this one. It's on energy. The County of San Luis Obispo has spent considerable time and money deciding whether to join the Central Coast Community Choice Energy Program. What are the pros and cons of joining?
I can't think of too many pros for joining. This has come to the board twice before. I've opposed it. I will continue to oppose it. I've said before it's a boondoggle. I'll continue to say that. What it is an energy co-op. You are forced into it. You have to go into it if the county or a city or municipality signs up for the project, then you have to pull yourself out if you don't like it. If it were that successful of a program, let everybody opt in and you wouldn't have a problem with me. When we had our Latino outreach debate, I showed a card. I have probably 20 of these where individuals that are his constituents in Arroyo Grande have given them to me, where they've been forced to opt in. Most of them have opted out by now. And the average savings, the best case scenario in savings that I can find out of at least 20 of these cards, these are cards sent by 3C to the individuals, is 10 cents a month. And all of them have different plans. So you're going to completely disrupt a complete system that you have right now. Tear it apart, sign up for this new system to save $1.20 a year. I'm all for saving, but that's ridiculous in my mind. So I also want to mention Mr. Paulding keeps talking about she's been paid off, she's been paid off. He's gotten a ton of contributions from Bruce Severance and people that are very intricately, Eric VM involved with community choice aggregation to push it. But if we have a board majority right now with Bruce and Dawn wanting it, you have a board majority that's not going to support it, and we will not buy on. If there ever is a profit with community choice aggregation, that profit can be used however the politicians want to use it. They could use it for education. They could put it in a pocket for something that you don't even agree with. So no, I don't support it. If you could opt into it and make your own decisions, then I would be completely fine with it, but you don't find that anywhere. Also, if you went to their last meeting and participated in that, you'll see the financials are not as great as they initially portrayed them to be. They're having tough times ahead. They're predicting that, and I do not support it.
All right, thank you. Jimmy?
So in everything you heard there from my opponent, really would indicate that all 7 cities and all the city councils on the 7 cities of the Central Coast, including more conservative city councils in Paso Robles and Atascadero, that they're all somehow drinking some Kool-Aid. And the reality is that it makes fiscally responsible sense to move forward with this program. As I mentioned earlier, the ag industry is hurting because they're not able to avail themselves of some of the incentive programs that are utilized and available in this particular community choice energy program. They're paying more in electricity bills, 16% more. And she keeps mentioning $1.20, which if you can pretty much pick whatever you want and not create an apples to apples comparison. The fact is that the city of Arroyo Grande being on community choice is saving hundreds of $1,000s a year, as would the county, if not millions. So the fiscal irresponsibility, that doesn't make sense. But if we try to then narrow in on the concern that folks are forced to opt in, that's not true. She clearly stated that you can opt out. And so to say that you're forced to opt in when you can opt out is just a poor argument that doesn't make any logical sense. The reality of the situation is that this is local control. We're giving our local elected officials more control over our energy needs in terms of procurement. We're still utilizing PG&E to handle all of the transmission and the associated maintenance of that infrastructure. So it's a good program because we're procuring renewable energies and it's fiscally responsible. And so it's this type of rigid ideology that we see with the incumbent that obstructs our ability to work together as a community to basically, in this particular case, save money in one area so we can focus dollars in another area. And that's the kind of leadership I'll bring to the County Board of Supervisors.
All right, thank you. This is our final question. Jimmy, you'll be up first. I want everyone to take a deep breath and a little bit of a different question. As you all know, campaigns can often get heated and divisive. Please tell us one positive thing about your opponent.
Well, I would say that at times we have seen a willingness to depart from the board majority. There have been a couple votes. Whereas the majority are always a 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, there have been a couple cases where she's done that. But overall, I think it is about working together as a community. It's about working together as elected officials. The comment was made somehow that in the city of Arroyo Grande that staff, has too much influence or that we always vote the same way. Our votes change constantly. One day I might be in the minority, another day I might be in the majority. And the problem with the incumbent's thinking is that somehow engaging in civil discourse and building consensus is a detriment, and that it really is all about power and control and being in the majority. And that type of thinking is why we've been so constrained in our ability to tackle homelessness over the last 8 years, in our ability to truly balance the water in our basins, as we've seen over pumping occurring under her watch, and our ability to make our community safer. When we look at public safety, for example, we've only got 2 sheriff's deputies that patrol all of South County. I can't even really wrap my mind around a community of Nipomo that has grown in size to almost the same population as the city of AG, only having that level of service. And it takes work. It takes, respecting your colleagues on the particular board that you might be working on, and ultimately delivering solutions. And we need more of that and less of the partisan divisive politics.
Okay, so rigid ideology. I don't know. I feel like my job is to fight for my constituents and to make this community better. And I really don't think about if have a unanimous vote on the board or if it's a 3-2 vote. I do what I think is right every time, and I represent my constituents. I don't know if I buy into we have to all be happy like that. But if you want to talk about civil discourse, the 2 most uncivil supervisors in the history of the board are people that supported you, Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson. I'll give Dawn Ortiz-Legg a lot of credit. She's very civil to talk with and to disagree with or to agree with. But if you want to talk civil discourse, those were not civil, and the discussions would automatically degrade. So anyway, and I'll correct an inaccuracy. We don't just have 4 deputies in South County, 4 deputies. We don't have 2, we have 4 deputies down here. And if he's making the comparison of Arroyo Grande and the population to Nipomo, in Arroyo Grande, the police do traffic citations and things like that. Down here, they don't do that. Down here, we have highway patrol to do that. So that's a fundamental difference. I understand he probably doesn't understand that. But getting back to what you had initially asked us, and to say something nice, I'll say two nice things. The one nice thing is he does have a really, really, really cute, adorable dog that he uses in a lot of his commercials, and I might nab it at some point. The second nice thing that I would say, and I said this actually before the meeting started, and I don't know, Brent, if you were on the line or not, but my daughter had his mother as a teacher. And for 1 year when she was at Coastal Christian, and there was an incident that happened with my daughter, and his mom, and she told me about this, his mom grabbed her hand and really diffused the situation. And so anybody that has a mom that's that sweet and that nice to somebody's kid that isn't her kid must have produced something good in a child.
All right, thank you. We'll now go to our closing statements. And Lynn, you're up first. These are 2 minutes for closing, followed by Jimmy.
All right, so thank you all. There are many things facing agriculture and farming today. We need to feed a rapidly global expanding population with more food on less acres and be more productive. There are so many policies that hinder the ability to do this, and I will continue to fight for these detrimental policies, fight against these detrimental policies. Virtually every one of these detrimental policies was created by well-meaning politicians who had no agricultural experience, just like my opponent. In my opinion, the top issues facing our farmers are water and water-related issues, water quality, nitrates, salts in the water, groundwater management, legislation and compliance, new sources of water and finding them, labor costs. 70 to 80% of the variable costs are tied up with labor. When you have the state telling you the minimum wage needs to be hiked, and you have unions wanting to interfere with all of this, yeah, that detrimentally affects farmers. You have invasive pests, and yes, commercial crops cannot be grown. You need pesticides and fertilizer to do that. They cannot be grown without them. So the people need to understand that. They think their food is bought in the grocery store, and they don't realize that you can't commercially produce a crop without using these. Farmers and growers have workers' comp issues. They have food safety issues. You've all read about listeria in the last couple of years. We need immigration reform, and that's something that doesn't come from the Board of Supervisors, but we need to encourage that with our legislative bodies that advocate on our behalf. We have to comply with these new standards that are being pushed down from the state regarding diesel and green mandates, where there's no infrastructure or funding for such. We need to be competitive, and so our regulations can't be more burdensome for us here in California compared to those in other states. Or, as you know, they'll move to Mexico. About a third of the growers in South County that grow strawberries are farming in Mexico because of all the restrictions we have here. We need private property rights that are strong and not diminishing. And like I said before, virtually every farmer in South County supports me. I'm running for election again. I hope I can count on your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, Jimmy.
I had to unmute myself there. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here tonight. I really appreciate the questions that were asked and the opportunity to exchange in this type of candidate forum and debate. This is the essence of our democracy, that we have competition and that we talk about issues and ideas and ultimately leadership. And I really do think that that's the pivotal moment that we're at in this county right now. Do we want somebody who has, the leadership and vision to move us forward, to move the needle on policy areas, whether it's water, whether it's housing, tackling homelessness, protecting our small businesses, or do we want somebody who is so rigid in their thinking and ideology that so often progress is completely obstructed? And as an Aurora Grande City Council member, I have a track record of working together to develop solutions to reach across the aisle and get stuff done. And I haven't just been endorsed by 3 of my colleagues on the council of all political persuasions. I've been endorsed by a handful of local community members, both Republican and Democrat, whether it's 4 former local police chiefs or local farmers, a number of unions, the Cal Fire Local 2881, our local construction worker unions, our nurses association. The working people of this county are behind me because they want to see change. They want to see the county get back on the right track. And it's just all about working together and bringing all the stakeholders in to solve problems. And I know a number of you here in the ag farming community have seen firsthand what that rigid ideology can do in terms of obstructing our ability to do good things in our community. The case in point is the Paso Robles groundwater basin and the associated planning efforts, where we've just seen too much policy being governed by fear and conspiracy theory as opposed to facts and science, and again, a commitment to work together to solve problems. So that is my commitment, to work together with you, with the community, to be a listener, and to be somebody that values compromise, values respecting the other, and ultimately someone who can really get the county back on the right track. So thank you very much, and I hope you will consider supporting my candidacy before June 7th.
All right, that concludes our candidate forum. I want to say thank you to Jimmy and Lynn for tolerating me as I fumbled my way through these questions. We got through it though, and thank you all for your time. We wish you the best in your campaigns, and we want to say a big thank you to everyone in the audience who watched this and be watching the replay later. Everybody remember to get out there and vote. You can watch the replay at slofarmbureau.org. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.